Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. This is episode number 199, entitled Benjamin Ritner Speaks with Cadence. It was published on Thursday, the 1st of October 2020. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and a few bits and pieces before we begin. Just to let you know that we produce quite a lot of WordPress content. You can find all of it over at wpbuilds.com, but there's a few links I'd like to mention. wpbuilds.com/subscribe. That lets you keep in touch with everything that we produce. Join our Facebook group there. Join us on Twitter there. Join us, in fact, everywhere over there. And you can also sign up to a couple of newsletters. We'll let you know about content, but also there's a separate newsletter where we can let you know about WordPress deals as and when we hear about them. Speaking of deals, we have a dedicated deals page over at wpbuilds.com/deals. And that page is a bit like a Black Friday page, but every day of the week, 365 days of the year, those coupon codes are up there. And if you need something this week, go check it out. Another one is wpbuilds.com/jobs. If you've got a job that you'd like us to freely publicise to the wider WordPress community, please go there and fill out the forms. wpbuilds.com/advertise will allow you to advertise on WP Builds and get your product or service in front of a WordPress specific audience. A bit like these guys have done. Do you use a page builder to create your WordPress websites? Or perhaps you're curious about what they can do? Whether it's Elementor, Beaver Builder, Gutenberg Breezy, Oxygen, or any of the other page builders, the Page Builder Summit will have something for you. It's running from October the 5th to October the 9th, and you can check out the amazing speaker list and get your free place at summit.camp. And A/B split test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time, like in a couple of minutes? Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and the WordPress block editor. You can check it out at absplittest.com. As mentioned in the ad I've just read out, the Page Builder Summit is just around the corner. This is something that Anshan LaRue and I have been working very hard on. If you are into using page builders or just curious about what they can do, please do head over to summit.camp. We've got an amazing speaker lineup. It's completely free to attend, and we'd love to have you there contributing, watching, enjoying the whole experience. So that URL, one more time, is summit.camp. Okay, let's get stuck into the main body of the podcast, shall we? This is an episode all about things Cadence, because today I'm speaking with Benjamin Ritner, and Cadence, I'm sure you've heard, it seems to be gaining a lot of popularity. There's an awful lot in Cadence. Not only have we got a membership, we've got plugins, we've got blocks, we've got absolutely loads. He's been really, really busy. Seems to be focusing a lot of effort on the block editor and what he can do with his theme and his block suite. But as I said, I'm just hearing endless things about it recently, and it all seems to be very, very positive. We talked today about why he built it, how he built it, what the difficulties and challenges were, and it comes across, I'm sure you'll agree, that he's a very sincere and genuine guy. So maybe go and click on some links in the show notes. You can sign up to his membership. At the time that I'm recording this, there was a lifetime offer. I'm not really sure if that's still going to be there, but certainly perhaps worth checking out. So I hope you enjoy the podcast. I certainly enjoyed recording it with Benjamin. Hello there, welcome to the WP Builds podcast. Thanks for joining us again and making it as far as the interview. Today we're talking about blocks and other things, but I think mainly we'll focus on blocks. I am joined today by Benjamin Ritner. How are you doing, Benjamin?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Are you Benjamin or Ben?
I usually go by Ben.
Yeah.
Yep.
My brother's a Benjamin, and he's always Ben. So I thought I'd ask at the beginning. Ben's on because you may have noticed that there's this thing in WordPress at the minute called the block editor. If you haven't heard of it, then frankly, just stop listening now, because clearly you are not meant for this podcast. The block editor, aka Gutenberg, has been around for let's say 16 months for now in an official capacity. It's been going quite a long time prior to that. And And one of the features that's been touted for the longest time is the ability for us to add blocks in, a whole bunch of blocks. And that is what Ben has been creating over the last period of time. We'll get onto that a little bit later. But before we do, Ben, what's your relationship with WordPress? How long have you been working with it? Is it an exclusive thing? Do you work with other tools as well? Just give us your potted history of Ben and WordPress.
Yeah, sure. I got started, like most people, building websites for other people. So just started creating websites for local businesses, and then was using WordPress. And, because of, at the time, the tools that I was finding, or the lack of tools that I was finding, that drove me to create some of my own tools and my own theme. And then I ended up launching a theme in 2013 called Virtue. And to my surprise, it took off. And I went from, maybe this will give me a little bit of like fun side income to, okay, this is what I do now. And nice. I'm a theme seller. So that was the kind of the launch of Cadence. And basically since then, literally just months after I launched that first theme, I launched a free version on WordPress.org and a premium version. And since then, I've been doing it full time. I've taken a few clients simply because they have interested me, or like I have a current client. It's kind of a client. They're a local coffee roaster in town, and I basically get coffee to kind of manage their website. So I don't really pay for coffee anymore. I do obviously do some work for that trade, but things like that have kept me on some of the client side. I have some side projects. I like to do entrepreneurial stuff. So I'm still doing websites, but mostly just doing themes and plugins. And from there I've developed a couple more themes and then more plugins. And now I've kind of got a membership that includes all of that.
Okay, right. So, going back a long time. It's interesting because you kind of joined the WordPress theme developer entourage in a time when I think it was still like extremely profitable. What I mean by that is, like you said, overnight you could go from putting together a theme. And I don't know where you sold that, if it was on a marketplace or if you sold it on your own website. But I think some people, if the stars aligned and it had the right collection of attributes to it, shall we say, portfolios and all that kind of thing, you could develop a very impressive and healthy career. Does it still continue to offer that same kind of financial reward, or does it tend to sort of ebb and flow a bit more?
No, everything got oversaturated about 2013, but even I was fortunate enough to get in when it wasn't too saturated, but it was about that time that really the theme environment just kind of went crazy, and there's now so many options and so many great themes out there that it's changed, which is in part why I started developing plugins as well, and really learned some lessons about pricing and how to, moving to a subscription-based pricing model was a big step. I launched on my own site, and that was great because I was able to control a lot of that stuff. But definitely learned a lot of lessons and went from like, this is exploding to like, why did the sales just die, to, okay, how am I going to remake myself and find like what Cadence is going to be? And so definitely up and down. And I think now it's really stabilized for me just with the customer base that I have. And,
yeah. Are you a sort of solo guy, or are you as part of a team that you manage, or is it, maybe you've got some VA support somewhere or other?
So actually my sister does support for me. She's been doing it almost from the beginning.
Nice.
and she doesn't live in Missoula. She lives in Boise, but she's been with me. I've had one other support person. I currently don't right now. Probably will try to find another. It's nice to have a team of three. So probably will try to find another this year, but still feeling that out.
Yeah.
Getting the right person is key. So it's small, and I'm the developer, so my sister doesn't do any of that. She's just doing support, and then she does like social media stuff for me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. The URL that we're discussing, Ben's kind of umbrella company, if you like, and we're going to get into more of the sort of specifics of what he does. But if you go to cadencewp.com, and just to be clear, that's a K, so it's KADENCEWP.com. You'll notice there that the main thing that's being advertised is plugins, themes, and a sort of membership. And at the moment, the pricing is what it is. It's $99 a year, and you can view themes and view plugins. So that still continues to be a source of revenue. You're still kind of pushing the membership of plugins and themes. And I suppose one thing that people want to know, does the Cadence blocks, which is what we'll talk about later, does that fall under the umbrella of the membership as well, or is that a completely separate thing?
No, it falls under. It's all part of membership. Cadence blocks, and even you like if you buy a theme from me, it comes with Cadence Blocks Pro. So that's as we move forward with Gutenberg, a theme being married to a blocks plugin, I think is going to be pretty, and not married like they can't be separated, but married like they're going to work really, really well together. And so that's always going to be something I work toward. If you buy a theme, you're going to get blocks. It's always going to come in a package like that.
Okay, that's great. So let's turn our attention to blocks then, because that I think is the thing of the moment. The talk for the last, like I said, 16, 18 months or so has been nothing but Gutenberg. And, so it's probably been a bit of a challenge. I'm imagining, although I could be wrong, that your journey with blocks goes back as long as Gutenberg has been in the block editor in core, so version 5. But maybe it goes way, way further in a period where Gutenberg was still kind of under development and you had to kind of download a beta test version. At what point did you start to say to yourself, there's something in this block thing, I really ought to start taking some time out and learning how this stuff works?
Yeah, so I started developing Cadence blocks in April, and 5.0 came out in November, or December. Yeah, I think it was December. We're at WordCamp when
you're
launched.
Around about there, whenever it was.
Yeah,
was more or less there. Yeah.
So, and I launched Cadence blocks in September of that year. So I was 3-4 months before 5 came out. And I, just like everyone, although my transition was a lot earlier, I heard about Gutenberg. I tried it out initially and it was like, this is so bad. And then, just kept seeing that, okay, this really is going to be it. I better kind of learn this. And I took some JavaScript courses. At the time, I didn't know much React or anything like that. So kind of getting my understanding there. And then I started really getting into building blocks simply to just be able to transfer some of the stuff that I was already doing with shortcodes or whatever in my themes to have a block version. And then it was like, oh, wait, I can do some of this stuff better. I can do columns better than what Core is doing. I can do, some of these core things. I can make this better or more appealing to use. And so that once I got to that point, and that was the beginning of summer, it got really exciting because I was like, oh, this foundation of Gutenberg really can be a cool future to build on. And just because the implementation right now is, and at the time, at that time there were so many buggy things. But now it's improved tremendously. And then too, like I went into it going, there's some key things that I can do to improve how people create websites. That's going to going to make people like blocks. And that was some of the early reviews were like, I didn't like Gutenberg until I tried your plugin, and now I do. And that was like, yes, this is exactly what I'm going, I wanted to create, is something that would help some of that hardship of feeling like I'm getting into this editor and it's really not giving me much ability to create. And can I create tools that really empower people to create cool stuff? So that was a big one. Creating the row layout block in particular was where I really felt like, okay, I can see the potential in Gutenberg, and that got me really excited.
Did you encounter sort of roadblocks along the way, or moments of anguish and grief upon which you built? I don't know. Let's say you'd spent a few weeks building a particular solution, only to discover that the team that were working on Gutenberg decided. By the way, I should keep calling it Gutenberg. I always call it Gutenberg, and I've realised this week that that's incorrect. So the team had decided, we're going to scrap that and go down a different direction, and all of your hard work had kind of had to go in the trash.
I haven't had to throw too much stuff away completely. I've certainly had to spend hours and hours trying to find information on GitHub in the Gutenberg repository, and especially early on. Now the docs are better. There's more tutorials out there, but at the time there wasn't any of that. So I was just reading through many of it irrelevant, topics on GitHub, and something would change or break, and having to go and find what that was and understand it. Especially coming in, Gutenberg's a big, it's a big software package in terms of there's just a lot of code and a lot of things interacting. So, and then at the time too, they were moving things around so you wouldn't get file history changes in Gutenberg, because they would have moved the whole folder to another folder structure. And then, so there were so many times like that where I was like, I don't understand what's wrong, and none of it makes sense. And so I've spent many, many hours very, very frustrated with not being able to find the information I needed, or figure out why some of this stuff has happened, or what's changed really. It's really helped because I have a pretty good understanding of a lot of the structure of Gutenberg, because I've had to just stare at code for so long. And so that's made some of it down the road easier, where you're like, oh, now I understand this, I know how to do it. But at the same time, very frustrating. And there were several times where an update would come out and I would open up the block editor and everything would crash, and I would go, oh no, like, what do I do now?
Yeah. It's a proper love-hate relationship at the beginning.
Definitely, have had plenty of moments of total freak out of like, how long is this going to take? And even since 5 came out, there's been some pretty breaking changes. And then what's tricky to even today is supporting the Gutenberg plugin as well as what's in core. That is always a pain, because they're changing CSS structure, CSS styles in Gutenberg, and you need to change your styles to match that or to make it work. But then that breaks the core version, so then you have to add back styles back in to make what's in WordPress core work. And that can be
say no more.
There's definitely lots of frustrations that come from working with and building on something that's being changed and improved so much. I don't want to complain in the sense of like, I want those changes. Like and the Gutenberg team needs to know that they can make those changes. Like I'm one of the people that's saying, yeah, like, let's make it better. Even if it breaks stuff, let's make it better. So, and let's figure out how to fix the stuff it breaks versus, oh no, we can't really change that because then it'll break stuff. I think even now we need to, and I know the Gutenberg team does a lot to try to not break things, but things break.
Well, there's still a lot of people who took a look at it way back when and decided that the block editor wasn't for them, and they've installed the classic editor, and never the twain shall meet. It feels like the classic editor is going to stay, they're going to hang in tooth and nail right until the last minute when that plugin is no longer supported. But for me, I've taken it off. I've taken the classic editor off. It was a precautionary measure, if nothing else. I'm really into it. I like the block editor. I like the way it's settled. I'm now really happy with kind of, using keyboard shortcuts and finding where everything is and so on. But I'm just sort of wondering from your point of view, if you've had to sort of sell the block editor to somebody who was not a convert, who was still stuck on the classic editor, in just a sort of few short bullet points, if you like, what are the main benefits that they're missing out on?
Yeah, I mean, if you're still using the classic editor it's just, what's the context for that is kind of where I would start. Because, like, if you're writing blog posts in the classic editor, then I would say, like, you need to give Gutenberg a chance and just go through the process of really learning it and writing a few. Most of the people that I see who are pretty against it are doing a lot of stuff with advanced custom fields, and they don't want to break away from that, and they've trained their clients to work in that environment. Right. And I get that. Like, I get that there are legitimate reasons to not want to move to blocks because you've built a system and you have clients who know the system and are happy in the system, and it's not broken and they're not asking for blocks. Then there's a reality of, like, I do believe the classic editor will be supported for a long time, and I don't think that, like, everybody has to change. But if you're not that particular person, then I think the benefits of being able to very quickly create a lot more dynamic content, and even just with a few clicks drop in like pre-built designs that are going to just up how you're creating content and really make it a more appealing experience for your viewers. I don't see why you wouldn't at least get back in and experiment with it again. A lot of the early on kind of issues, there was some performance issues for sure at the beginning. There was, there's been issues with being able to select the right block. A lot of that is really improving, and the tools now just make it so easy for you to add really interesting content and design into your site without much effort. And then there's also the whole page builder group, and that's another one I understand. I have a lot of customers who use page builder and they're completely happy in it, and I say, that's great. There's no reason you need to change, but there is going to be some performance benefits if you do, and I think there's going to be some long-term benefits if you do. But I also understand that, time is money, and learning a new system, teaching a new system, you've got to make that call. I think the biggest thing is get in and try it, and don't just write it off from when you first tried it. Get it in and try it again, and you might be surprised at the learning curve is a lot easier than a lot of people think.
Yeah, if I would say that if you're writing basically text and image based blog posts, there's literally no point in not using it. It's so much, it's so superior,
so much better
from the block. I mean, just one ridiculously simple aspect of it, which makes life so easy, is just the ability to move blocks around with a handle. You realize suddenly that this portion ought to have been much higher up in the text, where you don't have to sort of copy paste and delete what you previously written. You just move it up, and I use it 2 or 3 times every week to write posts, and I cannot see myself ever using the classic editor ever again. So yeah, it's an interesting time though, because we're being promised so much of what you mentioned earlier, the sort of page builder functionality. So we now know that the block editor can do, basic stuff like text editing really well, but it offers promise of page builder like functionality. And at the time of recording this podcast, that is materializing, but it hasn't materialized. We're seeing a future where, let's say, a lot of the customization of headers and footers and global things, styles and what have you, it's around the corner, but it's not there yet. And so I would say, yeah, give it a try. But it must be an exciting time for you, having got now a collection of blocks, premium blocks, and other ones that are on the repo. We'll talk all about that in a moment. Do you feel that this is kind of like a resurgent time for WordPress? Do you feel that sort of spirit of rejuvenation that you had with themes back in 2013?
Yeah. I think it's really exciting. I think the code base for Gutenberg is so good and can really transform how we even view the whole admin of WordPress. Yeah. I think, we can make guesses and we could say, I think it could go this way, but I really believe that the interface for the admin of WordPress can be much more fluid now that Gutenberg is coming along. And I think that eventually we're going to see whole new interfaces that don't look much like what we've used to with WordPress, because of the way that you can use Gutenberg and start to create just as a tool to create admin interfaces. For editing content and creating stuff. I think it opens up, to me, the creation experience of WordPress in a lot of ways that can expand in a lot of ways and really is exciting. I think it's obviously the biggest change to WordPress since it was created, and there's just this season of awkward that we're in.
I like that. I'm going to use that phrase. We're in the season of awkward. Yeah, that's good.
It's awkward for themes. It's awkward for certain plugins. It's awkward to support both. We're just in a really awkward phase where a lot of stuff is still being thought out. How is this going to work? And when we get through some of that awkward and we have a clear path forward, what always happens is then developers come in and go, okay, Core did this and got us to here, but now we're going to take that into these incredible user experiences. And I mean, just, you can think about some of the page builders, even like Elementor and Beaver Builder, they've created these amazing experiences in the admin of WordPress for you to create content. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing is all possible through Gutenberg, but in a much broader sense, where you're going to be able to tie in more of what everyone is doing in WordPress versus just the people that are working on Elementor or Elementor extensions.
Yeah, for me, that is the thing which is most exciting, is that if it can work, and if everybody, well, not everybody, but a significant proportion of the people can jump on board, the possibility of getting rid of that fragmentation so that WordPress feels like the same, more or less the same, for just about everybody is pretty exciting, because that's a big crowd of people. Getting onto the blocks themselves, though. So at the minute, I'm currently on cadencewp.com/product/Cadence Gutenberg blocks, and you can no doubt find your way there, and I'll put links in the show notes. You've got a couple of options. You've got your Pro blocks, which you can either get, as you said, as part of the subscription for Cadence, which is $99 a year, or there's two other options. There's a free option, or there's a Pro option. Now, interestingly, normally the skew is that the free is slightly hobbled in comparison to the Pro version, but you appear to have taken a different approach in that your free version has a significant amount in, and the paid version, the Pro version, well, forgive me, it's not going to come out the right way, but it has less in it. So the current ratio is 12 free blocks for free, and 7 premium blocks in the paid version. That's an interesting approach. Why did you go heavy on the free?
Heavy on the free because and this is the same with themes too, I always want to make a product that is fully usable as a free entity, and not a product that just gets you to buy premium. So I always want to think about free products that way. How can I make sure that this is truly built, well built, so that it's usable as free? And with the free blocks, there's currently 50,000 active users, and nice. I do not have 50,000 pro users. There's a lot of people using that because it's free and it's a great resource, and I always want to keep it that way. I always want to work toward that and make sure that what I'm offering for free is very good, and that and knowing that there's going to be a portion of people who are willing to get certain extra features and pay for it. And it's surprising how many times I'll get an email from someone that says, "Hey, I bought your pro because your free was so good."
Yeah.
And nice. I wanted to support it. Yeah. And so there's that aspect too. Part of it too is just the Cadence Blocks Pro is still fairly early in its development. There will be more that's added to it. There's going to be more that's added to free. But more than that, Cadence Blocks is more than just a set of blocks. It's about creating tools. And so some of those tools are going to have some free parts to it and some premium parts to it. Just in the natural sense, like pre-built content there's some free pre-built content, and then there's some premium pre-built content. That's not really going to show up in terms of an extra block. It's just going to be, there's going to be extra tools that are kind of throughout the blocks and the tools that come with blocks. Like, Pro adds on-scroll animation options to blocks. So, if you've got,
okay, yeah.
You can install Pro, and now all of a sudden your free block, you can add some animation on scroll, things like that. And there's I have a gallery block that's got a bunch of different ways to style galleries. I think it's a fantastic block, and then there's extensions for that in Pro. So there's some of that going on too, in terms of why do we only have 7 premium blocks right now? Because some of that is just building add-ons to the basic free blocks.
Got it.
And I don't totally like to think of the blocks as being basic. I really built all the blocks not as a set of preset styles, but as a tool to create content. So our tabs block can look a million different ways. You can design tabs however you want to design tabs. You can use preset designs or design your own. That's all part of the tools. It's not a tabs block this is the type of tabs you get. You get this color with these looking tabs. It's, you can define how you want that to look.
Yeah.
That's the approach I'm going with all the blocks.
I like it. I like the heavy free, trying to just sort of corral people towards the pro version. That seems like a really nice, sensible way of doing it. What I'm going to do just for a second is I'm just going to explain the process, just in case you're listening to this podcast and you're new to WordPress and you've yet to really take the plunge with Gutenberg. Basically, it's kind of like a point drag editor with the ability to kind of customize whatever block is that you've dropped in. So let's say, for example, you drop in a heading block. You can then write a heading and it appears in real time in front of you. And then there's customization options. So for example, you might change the font or the color of that font or the background. And it's all click, point, drag, save, and you're done. Okay, so the idea is drag stuff in, modify it until you're happy. And you basically click things and drag things, and you can get a bit more technical than that, but that's kind of how it works. So if you've ever played with a page builder, you're on familiar ground. Now, with that being said, this is the list of Cadence blocks which you can get for free. So this is on the WordPress.org repo. And I'm just going to list them out if that's all right with you, Ben, just because I think it's worth doing. And then maybe when I've gone through the free list, you could just spend a bit of time talking about the ones that you particularly like, or the ones that you're proud of, or ones that maybe have got a little hidden Easter egg that, persuade people to jump on board. So we've got the row layout block, number 1. Number 2, advanced button block. Number 3, advanced heading block. 4, the icon block. The tabs block follows on spacer/divider block, info box, accordion, advanced gallery, icon list, testimonial block, editor width controls, and pre-built library. Now, for somebody who's played with WordPress before, I'm sure many of those will immediately conjure in your mind what it is that they do, but I'm going to hand it back to Ben to describe sort of things that he's proud of and so on.
Yeah, I think the block the base block, and the block that I am the most proud of, is the row layout block. And that's simply because within that block, it really does add a lot of the page building ability, because now I can add a row, define a background, define the content width within that row. I can define a minimum height. I can align things. I can set how many columns I want. I can move those column widths around right in the editor. That really does create a lot of the page builder-esque experiences. Being able to put that row layout block in and say, okay, do I want this hero header, or do I want a column set, 3 columns with different content inside, and that's nestable, and you can nest and nest and nest, so you can create all kinds of cool stuff. And there's a lot of fun things with the row layout block, like being able to define a video background with a color overlay, even a gradient overlay that's opaque, so you can get the video coming through behind a gradient, things like that. There's even a slider background option. That really just ups the game in terms of what you can do within the editor. So that's a big one. I really spent a lot of time on the advanced gallery because it was one of the biggest pain points for people early on in Gutenberg. Is the Gutenberg core gallery output very large images, so they weren't optimized with very little options. So I went in and you can define the exact image size you want to use for the thumbnails, and you can create a masonry gallery or a grid or a carousel or a slider, all with just a click, and it'll transform for you.
Nice.
So that's a big part. And then with all the blocks, thinking in terms of performance, and thinking in terms of how do I make all these tools but not make it heavy on the front end. Every block loads its CSS only if that block is used.
Nice.
And if that block has JavaScript that's needed, so more recently I've even launched a forms block that allows you to create forms, contact forms, whatever kind of forms. And so there's different things within that. Within the forms block, you can add, there's settings to be able to say, I want to send an auto email to the user and all that stuff. All of that stuff just loads when you use it.
Right.
With the tabs block, the JavaScript that makes the tabs work loads if the tabs block is being used. And if that tabs block's not being used, that JavaScript's never going to load. So it's all just thinking about in terms of performance. With the gallery, if you've got a masonry gallery, then masonry's going to load. And if not, masonry's not going to load, because you can do that. You can just say, hey, within what I'm using, I'm only going to load what I need. And so it can be really, really fast on the front end without loading anything extra. It's just loading what you need to make it work.
I know that has been a criticism in this space, is that different versions of on a similar theme, shall we say, different blocks. You basically just load everything all at once, and if it's on the screen or not, it's all being loaded in the background. So that's really encouraging, and presumably you're saving us quite a bit of page load time as a result of that, which is nice.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes it so you can try out the free version of Cadence blocks and only use it on one page, and Cadence blocks will only ever load on that one page.
Yeah, that is nice.
And you're not investing in a plugin when you install it, because it's not going to run. It's not going to load anything on the page if it's not being used.
Yeah. Clearly, at this point, it feels like if you are sort of chomping at the bit, would maybe pause the podcast at this point, go download it from the WordPress.org repo and make use of those, play with them, and come back to the podcast, please, as soon as you finish playing with it. But you'll have a deeper understanding of how it all works, what the kind of options are, where the options are located, and how Ben has gone about setting things up. Now, you did mention the two options for getting on the pro level. You can either pay $59 US dollars, I'm expecting, per year to just access the Cadence Blocks Pro version, or you can do the $99 to have Cadence membership, so you get plugins, themes, the whole lot. Just on that point, before we move on to the extras in the Cadence blocks, I'm presuming that being a theme developer at the same time as now a blocks developer, there is some benefit that you've built into the themes themselves. Is there some kind of like nifty stuff that happens, some way of presenting things beautifully between your blocks and the themes that you've built?
Certainly the blocks are going to work with the themes I built, in terms of like, you're not going to be, every once in a while someone will email me or contact us and be like, hey, this block looks a little bit funky, and you go in and see this theme is doing something really weird. Right. And they're messing with a lot of things to change styling. So you're going to get that, but also more and more, again, we're talking about loading JavaScript and loading things like that. If you've got something set up in the theme that's going to need a slider JavaScript, and then you're adding a gallery or lightbox is even a good example. If you're adding a gallery and you've turned on the lightbox, our theme is going to not load the lightbox twice, that kind of stuff.
Right.
There's going to be things that are optimized better, because I'm the one writing both. And so I can say, oh, well, hey, just check for this. And so that's part of it for sure. And that's going to be even more and more as we go further and further down this path of what are themes going to be and what are blocks going to be and how are they going to work together. I'm seeing there's going to be more and more opportunities to kind of make the two work really well together for performance reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. And if you're up for the $100, $99 a year, then that's a nice, encouraging thing to know. Speaking of sort of like the pro one, as we were a minute ago, $59 a year. Let me just run through these. So you get obviously all the free ones because they're free, and all the features that are included in those, plus some completely new blocks, and, as Ben said, the ability to kind of tweak to the nth degree, to a higher level, some of the blocks which were available in free. So here we go. We've got the list: image overlay block, split content block, post grid carousel block, modal block, advanced gallery extras, so probably goes back to the advanced gallery, video pop-up, advanced image block, animate on scroll options, pro pre-built library. That sounds interesting. And then the other things which you receive, which are not blocks themselves, but equally important, is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee and premium support. Now, before we get into what's in those blocks themselves, support is always a thing which everybody goes on about. So I'm going to ask you what that means. What are your sort of support criteria? Are you on a email turnaround? Do you have live chat? And how long can we expect to get an answer from your sister?
Yeah, so I'm still pretty involved with support. I'm on it multiple times a day. I really don't like someone to go a day without hearing from me, and usually it's within a couple hours. If you get us at the right time, it's going to be pretty much instant. But obviously that's, depending on what time zone you're in and things like that. But usually you're going to get a response. And if it's a response that requires developer knowledge, and because a lot of my customer base is, there's quite a few that are the semi-pros who they need to know details. Hey, what filter can I use to control this, or how could I go about doing this? We're getting into problem solving questions. How do I pull this off? I really want to be able to help with those kinds of things as well. So I'm always on. I get flagged for certain topics if it's something that certainly requires any technical insight, or we've got a issue where there's some weird conflict. I'm going to work to make sure that gets resolved. So support's a big one. If you read our reviews, you'll see there's we do what we can to really make sure that we're offering support that goes above and beyond. That doesn't just say, hey, that looks like a conflict, you should try this.
Or go and contact the theme author.
Just vague, no, we want to problem solve it for you. And then too, if you're looking to customize something further than what the tools provide, I'm going to at least do what I can to give you some ways you could go about doing that, even to the point of writing some code.
Nice. That's what we like to hear. Thank you for that. So yeah, we probably won't go, because we don't have too much time, into the specifics of those. But as I was reading them out, I'm sure that it was conjuring in your mind an image of what those the blocks can do. Best thing, of course, is to go over to the cadencewp.com website, and there's links all over the place. There's demos of all the blocks, and there's images of how the blocks work and whatnot. You mentioned a minute ago that you are working, or have worked, on a forms block, which tells me there must be some sort of roadmap of things which are coming in the future. So if we could just tap into that a little bit, I'm sure people would be interested on what comes down the road in the next 2, 3, 6 months, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's going to be some new blocks that do some of the basic stuff that people still want. A maps block, for example.
Nice.
Table of content is on my list. A restaurant style food menu block.
Nice.
So some of those are in process. I'm also working on a pop-up creator, so you can use our forms block right now to connect with MailChimp or Sendinblue. A pop-up creator will come into Pro very soon, where you'll be able to just you won't need another plugin to add pop-ups for, subscribe to our email list, things like that. But then, some of the big picture stuff that is taking up time is, okay, how is full site editing, and how is Cadence blocks going to be a part of full site editing? How are we going to plan for it? What are we going to build that's going to make it, again, less awkward? How do I create tools that are going to work really well in the header and things like that? So that's stuff that I spend a lot of time in. I've also hired a developer to help me build a bunch of pre-built content. So that our pre-built content library very soon is about to triple in size, which is
nice,
exciting, because that's going to really amp up. It's where a lot of people go. It's just a fantastic way to get into blocks, and so that whole area is about to ramp up quite a bit. So
yeah, I feel that those people who are really using page builders exclusively, this is going to be so exciting in the future. These pre-built libraries, a lot of themes have kind of come out with these, and obviously they're compatible with the page builders, and increasingly seeing whole websites being built with a single click. But I do like the way it's done. You basically go into the library, you see a thumbnail of a block, and for block, think row, really. You see a hero area, or things laid out as icons, or 3 images next to one another in columns, and so on and so forth. And they're all categorized, and basically you just click on the one you want, and boom, there it is in your site, and you just customize it to your look. And if you've got a bunch at the moment, you're going to triple that in the next few weeks. That's great. Well done.
Yeah,
it's really exciting.
I'm excited. Had a developer help me with that, or a designer, really. So
yeah, you were speaking about the sort of the customization of things like, well, they're calling it site-wide, aren't they? You know, the whole site, headers and footers and things like that. Do you intend to be there on day one or pre-day one, so that the minute all of that really rolls out in a solid way into core, you're going to be ready? What I'm kind of trying to ask is, are you in this for the long haul? In other words, if people invest in Cadence blocks, can they kind of bank on this a year from now, 2 years from now, when Gutenberg fully delivers, you're going to be sticking around and hopefully delivering value in the months and years to come?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I've been playing around with full site editing since it, originally started to get pushed on into GitHub, and have met a lot of the people that are heading that up on the Gutenberg side, and I've chatted with them. So that I definitely always want to be on the cutting edge of what a Gutenberg's doing, and it's just a bit of when do you jump into starting to actually release something when it's still in this stage of being very, very early. So I'm walking that line of testing out some options. How could this work? But also keeping, eyes on what's happening in terms of core and what the Gutenberg team is creating.
Yeah, it sounds like a good answer to me, Ben. So, if you've not played with the block editor Gutenberg before, this sounds like a solid choice to me. CadenceWP.com. If you have played before, but you've not really had a go with kind of third-party blocks, again, same answer. Go check it out. And if you've got an existing pack of blocks and you're thinking to yourself, well, it doesn't do this one thing that I wanted it to do, go and have a look at CadenceWP.com. And, bear in mind, this is Ben's full-time gig. It's going to be getting bigger and better as the days and weeks go by. Ben, just before we end, opportunity to drop some Twitter handles or email addresses, basically anything you want. The floor is yours. Whatever you want to say, go for it.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Benjamin.Ritner, I believe is my handle. I'm not that great with social media. I will say that up front, but you can certainly contact me there. I don't really use Facebook or Instagram to do anything, so Twitter is going to be the best. I will just mention that if you're solely interested in blocks, I have a website, cadenceblocks.com, where you can it's just a little bit, it's the same information that's on Cadence WP, but it's just going to be laid out a little bit different, so you can kind of get a sense. Everything links back to Cadence WP, but it's just going to give you a little bit easier way to navigate and see some of the tools and options that are within the plugin.
I will be sure to link to that in the show notes. That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I wish you all the success in the world for Cadence blocks, and I hope that a lot of our audience go check it out.
Thanks a lot.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. Very interesting episode. It is a little bit possibly out of date. That is to say, some of the content that we talked about has possibly been superseded. There's certainly been lots of improvements made since the day that we did the podcast. And so that's worth noting. Perhaps go and check out the latest features and the latest pricing and the latest developments, because, as I said, there have been a lot. It looks like a product which is gaining so much traction, and deservedly so. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by the Page Builder Summit. Do you use a page builder to create your WordPress sites? Or perhaps you're curious about what they can do? Whether it's Elementor, Beaver Builder, Gutenberg, Breezy, Oxygen, or any of the other page builders, the Page Builder Summit will have something for you. It's running from the 5th to the 9th of October, and you can check out the amazing speaker list and get your free place at summit.camp. And A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B split test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and the WordPress block editor. You can check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Okay, That is all that we've got for you this week, except for me to remind you that we'll be back next Thursday for another podcast episode. Good grief, sounds like it'll be episode 200. Also, we'll be back on Monday, every Monday for the WordPress Weekly News. We do that very early in the morning, and then the live version of that as well, 2 p.m. UK time at wpbuilds.com/live, or in the WP Builds Facebook group. It only remains for me to fade in some cheesy music and say, stay safe. Bye-bye for now.